And we have Finding Out True Love is Blind by Louis the 14th, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you know this song?
This song.
You have to be really
No,
into music.
I didn't know this one. Yeah, no, you have a couple on here that I didn't know that I really like. But this is a great one. This represents your love for writing.
Yes. Yeah, I think this song, the first time I heard it, I was in California. I had met this crew of guys that was working on the auto show in Chicago when I worked at NBC. I did it every year. And I met them, and they did mostly film, and they were all based in LA. My girlfriend and I were taking a trip out to LA, and when we were out at their house, we had this beautiful night where I was around a lot of artists. And I don't think that I had surrounded myself with a lot of artists prior. And I definitely didn't have in my core friend group something like this. So we're out there, and I think his house was at Silver Lake, and his friends a couple of the friends brought over this giant pan that was for paella. And like over an actual fire, we made paella, sat around this all day, and had one of the most, I don't know, it must be very European feeling, that not a day that you typically have anywhere else. And I remember hearing people around that fire and around that paella and that beautiful moment talk about their art. And one of them was a writer. And I, in that moment, said, well, I'm not really a writer. I've never been. I had one teacher in 7th grade that I got a B on a paper, and I went up to her because I was such a perfectionist. I was like, yeah, I actually can't get a B. So if you could help me do something about it. And she was like, well, that's what you got. And she said, well, maybe writing isn't your thing. I took that, and in my head, I twisted it right up into, you're not a good writer. Nobody said that, but I labeled myself that from 7th grade on, and science and math were definitely things that were easier for me, but I had loved writing. And so I lost it. And up until here, I was in my mid-20s, or early, I don't remember what year it is. Yeah, mid-20s. And it had been a good 12, 13 years since I had written for fun. And after this trip, I was like, why am I labeling myself this way? Why don't I just start journaling? How about I don't need to share this with anybody, but I used to love it so much. And I loved that travel had brought me this new group of people. I can't even tell you their names. I have no idea who they were. But they brought me this beautiful night that I'll never forget. And again, that transitional moment where it was a reminder that label I had put on myself for so long needed to start to be shed. And it led to many more great things. Yeah.
It did. It led to you being a New York Times bestseller. So that teacher, bad impression.
And that's the thing. I think we all don't know how heavy our words can be for people. And so we have to, that's why words matter. And I don't think that there was any intention there. And the biggest part of it was how I perceived it. And whenever I speak to students now, I'm like, listen, even if it doesn't come easily to you, if you love it, go for it. Try it. I don't want people showing up on American Idol not singing well, because they rely on that for the first 2 episodes. But right. There are certain things that you can develop skill in. And I think writing is, I think people are born writers for sure. There are people who are more prone to write better. But I do think that you can learn skill in it.
And you have a line of children's books as well, correct?
Yes, Chasing Helicity, Helicity is my favorite tornado variable. And that was the book I actually wanted to write first. I went to an editor because, again, I wasn't ready to be a writer. I did not consider myself that, even with my journaling. And I went when I was pregnant with my son because I couldn't find a baby book that was very good. And I thought, well, I can handle a baby book. And this editor said, yeah, that idea for Helicity, this character, that sounds great, but it's like more of a chapter book. So why don't you write that and then show us? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not a writer. And she said, why don't you just go try? And I owe her so much because I came back with a couple of chapters and she said, not only is it good, we want to make a trilogy out of it. And as I talked to her about what I would base that book on, I started talking about my own story. And she said, Ginger, that's the book. And that's the book that became a New York Times bestseller. And then I've built this kind of side, being an author, which is the weirdest thing to say, but it's exciting. And now I'm diving in and reading all the more than I ever have and trying to learn more and more about writing in those years that I skipped because I thought that I couldn't do it.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's a great label to have, though. New York Times best-selling author.
Yeah,
Congratulations on that. That
right.
is
Thank you.
awesome.